Welcome to Rugby Obsession, the podcast for those who, obsess over rugby.
Exactly.
If that sounds like you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our deep dives into the world of rugby, today we're getting into something that's got everyone buzzing.
Yeah, a lot to talk about this.
The Springboks selection strategy for the upcoming season and, looking all the way ahead to the 2027 World Cup.
It's pretty fascinating.
They're working with a massive pool of players. Huge. 80 players.
I know, right?
Way more than they can actually take to the World Cup.
It's way more than any other team is working with, that's for sure.
So the big question is, why are they doing this?
Yeah, what's the strategy here?
And what does it tell us about their plans?
Well, to help us unpack all of this.
Break it down.
Yeah, break it down. We've got our resident rugby expert here.
Ready to share some insights?
Always happy to dive into the stuff.
Let's rewind to 2024 for a second. The Springboks had an incredible season.
Yeah, they were dominant.
Winning 11 out of their 13 matches.
Including that rugby championship title.
Exactly. They clinched the rugby championship. And remember, they achieved all of this with a 50-player pool.
Which was already considered pretty big at the time.
Huge. So now expanding that to 80,
yeah,
that's a bold move.
It's a statement for sure.
So what do you think is the thinking behind this?
Well, to me, it really looks like the Springboks are playing the long game. They're not just focused on the next World Cup.
Right.
They're building for sustained success, beyond that.
Looking ahead.
Yeah. And this expanded pool, it gives them the space to experiment.
Okay.
To try out different combinations, see how players perform in different roles.
Right, so they can
really get a sense of what works.
see what they've got.
Exactly. It's like they're future-proofing the team.
That's a really interesting point. It's like they're building this rugby laboratory.
I like that.
They're testing out all these different formulas to create the ultimate winning concoction.
Yeah, the ultimate Springbok squad.
Okay, so let's dig into this depth chart.
All right, let's have a look.
We're looking at it broken down by age and experience, right?
Yeah.
And it paints a pretty clear picture.
It does. It really does.
What jumps out at you?
Well, you'll notice that a good chunk of the 2019 and 2023 World Cup winning squads...
They're back-to-back champs?
Yeah. Those guys are now veterans.
Right. They've got the experience.
Many of them are over 33 years old.
So that means the Springboks are going to need a succession plan.
They do. And they're not just looking for replacements. They're looking for players who can take the team even further.
Right. So it's not just about filling spots. It's about
elevating the team, taking it to that next level.
And that's where this massive player pool comes in.
It's essential.
It's not just about having a lot of players. It's about having the right players.
Strategic selection.
Yeah, exactly. And if you look at the chart, you'll see a really strong group of players.
Yeah, sort of in their prime.
Highlighted in orange and yellow.
They're ready to step up, I think. Ready to take on those leadership roles.
Yeah, they're bridging the gap.
Exactly.
Between those seasoned veterans and the young guys coming up.
And speaking of those young guys, there's a significant number of players in this pool who are 25 or under.
Wow.
Which tells me they're thinking long-term.
Building for the future?
Yeah, nurturing the next generation of Springboks.
It's a dynasty in the making. And if you want to keep up with every twist and turn of this rugby saga, make sure you're subscribed to Rugby Obsession. We'll be right back. Okay, so we're back and ready to dig even deeper into this Springbok strategy. And one thing that really stands out to me is their commitment to rotation.
Oh, absolutely.
Like they're constantly switching up team combinations.
Right. You never quite know who's going to be on the pitch.
Yeah, which must make them incredibly unpredictable for their opponents.
Oh, yeah. I mean, try to game plan against that.
It's a brilliant strategy.
It is.
But I can't even imagine the logistics for the coaches.
Oh, it's got to be a nightmare.
How do they keep track of all these players?
Yeah.
And then figure out the best combinations for each match?
Yeah, that's where the real expertise comes in. You have to really understand each player's strengths.
And weaknesses, right?
Yeah, and not just individually, but how they fit together.
Like a puzzle.
Exactly. You need those pieces to click. It's more than just individual talent.
They need to complement each other.
Right, like a well-oiled machine.
Or a rugby orchestra.
There you go.
Blending all those different instruments to create a powerful sound.
Exactly.
And speaking of creating a powerful sound, let's talk about Tony Brown.
Oh, yeah, the new attack coach.
He's brought in some fresh ideas.
Innovative guy.
What kind of impact has he had on the Springboks play?
Well, we're definitely seeing a more dynamic attack, lots of movement, creative offloading.
Willing to take some risks.
Definitely more adventurous, yeah. I think it's still a work in progress.
Sure, still early days.
But the early signs are promising.
It'll be interesting to see how it develops.
Yeah.
Okay, so looking ahead, the 2025 season has some really exciting matches.
Packed schedule.
From a strategic point of view, which ones are you most excited about?
Well, the matches against Italy and Georgia are interesting.
Oh, yeah. Why those?
They'll have a chance to give some of those younger players a run,
Okay.
test them out at the international level.
Without too much pressure.
Exactly. And I'd imagine they'll be looking to experiment a bit more in those matches.
Yeah, try some new things.
See what those young guys can do.
Right. It's a good opportunity for them to prove themselves.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, the Springboks have got some big challenges coming up,
Some tough opponents, yeah.
like winning at Eden Park
That's always a tough ask.
and breaking their losing streak against Ireland and Dublin.
Big challenges.
Those are going to be some massive tests.
For sure. I think for those matches, we'll see a more experienced lineup.
Right. They'll need to bring out the big guns.
You can't take those games lightly.
So it's a real balancing act for the coaches, isn't it?
It is.
Giving those younger players opportunities, but also
Putting out the strongest team when it matters most.
making sure they're ready for those crucial encounters.
Absolutely.
Well, it's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out. And for all you rugby fanatics out there, if you want to stay ahead of the game, make sure you're subscribed to Rugby Obsession. All right, so let's get to the big question, the one everyone's thinking about.
The World Cup.
Exactly. Will this strategy,
This whole 80 players.
this massive pool, all this experimentation,
Yep.
will it pay off with a World Cup three-peat in 2027?
Wow. A three-peat. That's
That would be historic.
It would be, wouldn't it? I mean, they definitely have the potential. The talent is there.
The coach.
They've got a system that's clearly working for them.
Right, they're getting results.
Yeah.
But it's a long road to the World Cup.
It is. A lot can happen.
And it's not just about having a strong team on paper, is it? Nope, not at all. You've got to peak at the right time. You need to be able to adapt.
Handle the pressure.
Oh, yeah. The pressure of a World Cup is immense.
Then there's the competition.
Oh, yeah. You can't forget about that.
All the other teams,
They're not standing still.
they're gunning for that trophy too.
Everyone wants to be world champions.
So the Springboks can't just rest on their laurels.
No, they can't get
They
complacent.
need to keep pushing, keep evolving.
Exactly. That's what makes it so exciting.
Right. It's that unpredictability, the drama.
All those incredible teams going head to head
The clash of the titans.
on the world stage doesn't get much better than that.
It really doesn't. And if you're as excited about this as we are, make sure you've hit that subscribe button for Rugby Obsession. You won't want to miss any of our analysis as we follow the journey to the 2027 World Cup. But before we wrap up,
Yep.
here's one final question to think about.
Okay, I like this.
With this huge pool of players,
80 players. And all this rotation, all this experimentation, is there a risk that they might lose some cohesion?
that's a good point.
You know, that consistency that you need
When it really matters.
when the stakes are high.
Mm,
Or is this flexibility actually their secret weapon?
maybe it's both.
What do you think?
Hmm.
Let us know down in the comments. Share your thoughts, your predictions. We'd love to hear from you.
Always great to get the fans' perspectives.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the Springboks selection strategy. Thanks for joining us on Rugby Obsession.
Always a pleasure.
We'll be back soon with another episode exploring another corner of the rugby world. Until then, keep those rugby passions burning.